It was the press conference heard around the world. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance attacking and berating an American ally, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. As many Americans, I came away after watching the presser with mixed feelings and emotions. It took me a couple of days to truly process it. But one of the things I came away with is the utter failure of the Republican Party, and in particular the hawks of the party over the decades, to truly educate the American people on our role in the world order. For instance, I didn't understand that America had made an agreement with Ukraine, a country that could have pursued nuclear weapons after the fall of the Soviet Union, not to take that route in order to get certain safety guarantees from the U.S. The same could be said of Taiwan and other countries yearning to be free. It was almost an implicit agreement that if you were interested in democracy, America had your back and would support you. We also know Europe decided to step away from strong military in order to turn its safety and security primarily to the United States. The U.S. had an amazing role in the world. It was literally the only country that was a superpower and had the ability to flex its muscle and therefore keep the peace. It was an ironic position for America to be in. My father used to constantly remind me that America had not won a war since World War II. I'm a Gen Xer, and I was born during a time when America was just coming out of its worst war, Vietnam. The war divided America drastically. Massacres happened on our watch. Innocents were killed on the idea of just following orders. Our soldiers came back home and they were vilified. Some had developed a very strong drug addiction. Others were sickened by chemicals used during the war. The U.S. government denied the illnesses ever existed, and soldiers suffered for it and were never fully cared for. Meanwhile, the American people asked the question, what were we fighting for? America's power was further questioned when Iran flexed its muscle and took hostages in the U.S. embassy in that country. Jimmy Carter looked weak and indecisive in his attempt to resolve the situation. Carter, a true Christian, later would state that he could have leveled the Iranian government, but chose not to because he felt such an action would be immoral. Could we say that of American president today? But it is out of that crisis that Ronald Reagan emerges and basically takes credit for the rescue of the hostages, the fall of the Soviet Union, and the Berlin Wall. It was tough talk, so-called peace through strength, that gave the Republican Party a hawkish foreign policy and political identity. But over the years, the Republicans never sold the American people on why it was so important to try and solve the world's problems. And in the case of multiple conflicts in the Middle East under both Bush presidents, it appeared as if America was pursuing its own economic agenda. Both President Bushes and the Cheneys were oil men, and the Middle East is a sea of oil. It was clear to the left, and to me in particular, America's interest in the Middle East had to do with our interest in oil and profits, not protecting countries that were fighting for democracy. By the time we get to the aftermath of the war in Iraq and President Obama, you have a whole generation of people who began to question America's military power and American interventionism around the world. Donald Trump came on the stage not only questioning the birth certificate of Barack Obama, but also attacking the Bushes and the Cheneys. I remember clearly Trump calling Bush a war hawk and Cheney the same thing. Trump 1.0 clearly ran on an anti-hawk message. It helped him win his first 4 years. And now here we are today. Trump and the Republican Party, not only anti-hawk, anti-Ronald Reagan, but pro-Putin. It is a stark contrast within 40 to 50 year period for the Republican Party to lose every single ounce of its identity over that period and go a full 180 degrees. On the left, the role of America's military and interventionism over my lifetime has always been met with skepticism. So it is no wonder a person of my generation and younger doesn't see the U.S. role as a military superpower in the world as necessarily a good thing. While America has been spending its time getting into wars in the Middle East, our true enemy in Europe was growing. Only one party in America had decided to take up the cause of military interventionism around the world. And unfortunately for Europe, That party no longer exists and perhaps never did.